For me, first of all, I think Mozart invented, created the soul and the spirit and the sound of the clarinet, and especially the bassette clarinet, the deep clarinet. He was using that instrument not only in his concerto, but also in the Requiem and the late opera. And he was seeing something in the clarinet or hearing something. That's why I'm saying the clarinet soul. Of course, it's many souls of the clarinet in different genres, but in the classical field, he invented and created or reincarnated something very important, the singing part, the operatic part, which is in this concerto a lot, because he has this dynamic between the bass line and the soprano voice. He created feelings, for example, the hope. I think the hope was important for Mozart when it came to the clarinet. In its opera, it's sometimes the clarinet you see as a nostalgic sound, sometimes for me anyway, in the klezmer music or the Hungarian music, but for Mozart it was connected with hope, I think, and the timbre of the hope. But the concerto itself, I think, has more farewell, because it's the last concerto that he did, than you think. In the same time, it has this human aspect that everyone in the orchestra speak. They have a line, they have a part to play. Not only, play sweet and beautiful, they have really something to say, to speak out. Also the clarinet, of course. So I would say he speaks very clearly to the people, for the people, but maybe in a divine way. But it's really music for the people. For over almost 200 years, we didn't use the bassette clarinet for this concerto. We played it a normal clarinet. But for some reason, we discovered it. And as I remember, it was through a review. So a journalist wrote something about the concerto, and then he said, it's pity that we couldn't hear it as it should be. And then he took a lot of examples in the paper from the original, but the original was lost. So he printed in the newspaper, this is how it should be, with this line going down in the basement, in the bass line, and then coming up again. So that's how we found out what it should be. And then they reconstructed this part and the bassette clarinet again. I remember I was only 17 when I started to play these clarinets, so it felt like, of course it's just the imagination, but it felt like I came closer to the original and come closer to the sound world of Mozart. It's more classical, it's more slender than an A clarinet. It has a classical slender that I like.
My experience of Bruckner is over many, many years now, and I came across one thing that in the rehearsal yesterday, the biggest gift about playing Bruckner or listening to Bruckner, I think, is this idea of collective. It only works if everybody gives into the center. And that includes the public, of course, but it's very interesting for the musicians. It's a little bit block after block. It's a little bit repetitive sometimes for some of the players, but I think when they let go, and there was a lovely moment yesterday where suddenly this slow movement, I tried all tricks I could do. I shut my eyes, I tried to look at them, how to make everybody resonate at the same frequency. And once you're in it, there's nothing else like it. And I think that's why the power of Bruckner has remained for so strong in people's hearts. Depends a little bit where you are. Now come the question, well, why Bruckner 2? Well, Bruckner 2 and why this program? And the short answer to why this program is because they both fascinate me, and they fascinate me for the same reason, actually. And the reason is that they're both extraordinarily human pieces. And when I say that, I mean that we have a very late piece of Mozart and a relatively early piece of Bruckner. And the stereotype of Mozart would be, it's like God speaks. It's so amazingly perfect. Yes, it is perfect, but it's perfect because it's amazingly human. And this concerto is interesting because you have all the joy and the fun of the bassette clarinet. It's in A major, but it goes into the minor, the other side of life, very, very often. But it never gets depressive. It's always saying yin and yang, they're part of the same life. And in fact, if you make a balance between these two parts of life, you end up fulfilling the humanity that we have. The end of Bruckner too is a mixture of two things. He goes, the trumpets go, da-da-dum, da-dee-da-ya-da-dum, da-dee-da-ya-da-dum. Anything going up 3 notes in major scale in all of Romantic music, Mahler too, Ja auferstehen, you could find it everywhere. It means, yes, we go into this next world. We communicate with the freedom of heaven. And at the same time, he goes, diddly-um, ba 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 bum, ba 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 ba, and anything going downwards, a scale going downwards, is usually very much of this life. So what he manages to do, Bruckner, at the end of the whole symphony, is to say, ba 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 bum, ba 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 bum, and they are exactly 50-50, which means for me that he's saying that we do reach the possibility of living a human life and being spiritual at exactly the same time. The struggle to get that far is a huge personal, human struggle. It's not that you believe in God, like maybe it is for some of the later symphonies. You start off, lots of semitones. It searches. I find that there's fear, there's OCD, there's joy, there's falling in love, many times falling in love. There's hope, there's despair. There's suddenly, in the first movement, you always get 3 music subjects. You get the first one, which says, this is how life is. You get the second idea, this is how life should be. And the third idea is always, how do we get from where we are to where we want to be? But in this particular symphony, he writes a fourth one, which is suddenly a chorale. It's the Kyrie from the Mass that he wrote. So we get suddenly God appears. I believe, Lord have mercy on us. This is where you see the building block of Bruckner starting to say maybe the religious spirituality will pull everything together. It's totally human. And I wanted to put these two pieces together because I think they are both parables for what real humanity is, which is taking the plus and the minus, putting them together and letting them live their own thing at the same time.